Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to today's video. This video is going to be for August and September, and we're just going to jump right into it. I'm already starting to show you some of our young pumpkins, our small little pumpkins. Some of them have some interesting shapes, but that first pumpkin that I showed off did have some damage, and I believe we have some possums or rats, something that's scurrying around the yard, and it's actually starting to damage some of these guys. So I've made the executive decision, and I'm just going to start harvesting these a little early. And I know some people don't really like to harvest their pumpkins until the vine dies back or until the vine hardens, but some of these pumpkins just look too good to be left to the pests. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to grab these and make sure that we can actually secure a nice decorative pumpkin here and there, especially these white ones. These white ones are actually the first ones that I've ever grown that have been all white. They do start to ripen once you harvest them off the vine, so if you want them to stay this pearl white, this pristine white, you should try to harvest them as close to Halloween or October as possible, and then they'll stay white. But as soon as you harvest it and you leave it on the table, it's going to end up turning orange. And this is another pumpkin that I have. This is actually one of my normal pumpkins, I guess I would call it, just because it is that bright orange color. But you can see it looks very, very pristine. No damage, no rot. It's looking pretty good. And then this is actually the largest pumpkin that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and just show this guy off. It is a little green on the bottom side, so I'm just letting this continue to ripen on the vine. And then as we get closer to October, like I explained, I'll go ahead and harvest that. And this pumpkin can be used for just about anything, whether it's decorating the front of your house, harvesting the seeds to actually use for consumption later, or you can just go ahead and harvest the inside of the pumpkin and make pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread. I mean, there's so many options. But yeah, like I said, these white pumpkins are some of my favorite, and it's the first time I've ever grown them, so I'm very happy with them. Here's another pumpkin that is the first time I've ever grown. I don't really know the name of this. Honestly, I just experiment with my gardening. I know a lot of people have certain varieties and they have all the names down and that's their staple or their favorite. For me, I just like to experiment and see what I can grow and see what grows best in my area. But that pumpkin right there is definitely a nice little decorative one. And now we're going to get into the sunflowers. I have a couple sunflowers still around the house, and I'm actually able to harvest a lot of the seeds now that they are starting to dry up. So if you can take a look at that, the seeds are looking really good. And honestly, the best thing to do is just hold on to these, and you can either use them to turn into some spitting seeds, or you can use them to grow more sunflowers next year. Heading on into the partial greenhouse, this is where I have some of the tomatoes, the peppers, and some of these bush beans. These are cowpeas, and you can see this one is still green. It's not ripe. As they ripen up, they become purple, and I'll show you that right now on this plate where I have a whole bunch of different seeds just kind of drying out. But I don't think I'm going to grow these beans next year because they weren't really all that prolific this year. They didn't generate as many beans as I would like, so I'm going to go ahead and remove these. But I also want to cut back some of this growth that is on some of the tomatoes and the beans just because there is a lot of damage, and by removing these leaves it'll help so that it brings in some light for the plants down below. And then I'll go ahead and I'll zoom in and show you guys some of the tomatoes that we have growing right now. Right now I do have some Romas which are looking really nice, and some of these have already ripened and I've taken them inside, so you can see that's just a gorgeous tomato looking really good. And then I do have a couple pepper plants which are also doing really well. However, this year I have run into an issue, which is the white flies and the aphids, well, along with the ants. As I turn over this leaf, you can see just how many white flies were on this thing, how many ants are crawling all over these plants. And I do have a solution which I will try to implement next year, which will be the diatomaceous earth, which if you put near the base of the pepper plant, it actually stops the ants from tracking and using the aphids as a food source. So that's one of the solutions. But just going around and taking a look at some of these peppers, you can see they're absolutely gorgeous. I mean, they're a deep dark color. They are actually really, really hot. I've already made a couple jalapeno peppers this year and they are scorching. So like I said, they're all doing really good besides some of the pest damage, but the overall fruit that the pepper plants are generating are really good. And I do have a couple more tomato plants on this side of the garden, and as you can see, some of these leaves that I'm touching and I'm pulling back, the white flies are over everything. I understand that that has to do with a lot of the spacing that I'm giving these plants too. I am growing in a small little space, hence the reason why I'm using some of these containers. So it makes it a little bit difficult to kind of keep these pests under control when you literally have all your plants touching. So that's another tip. If I had to give a tip to somebody, if you're growing in a small space, try to utilize that space as best as possible and make sure that some of these plants aren't touching each other. Now I'm just showing off some of the yarrow plants, the yarrow flowers, and the bay trees. And then we'll come over onto this right side of the garden where I have the pomegranates, which are also being choked out by the pepper plants, and then my artichoke plant. This artichoke plant I've had alive for like the last 3 years, and every year it's produced some of these pups, the suckers that come off the main shoot or the main stem. I haven't really had great success with harvesting them off of the main stem, so I'm going to go ahead and just leave them on the plant and let them mature and see if I can get more artichokes this year. And then as we come over to the, I guess what I call the nursery section, you can see that we do still have a couple of the avocado plants, which are doing really well. Taking you guys to the top of the rack, you can see I still have some more avocado trees. They're doing okay, but they could be doing better. I also have some aloe pups in the back, which are doing really good. Just gotta stay up with the watering. And then I have my red Caribbean papaya plants right here, or trees. They're doing okay, but they are getting chewed on, so I'm gonna have to maintain them or try to protect them even more. Here's a little mint plant doing okay. And then last I have a little pumpkin vine, which is doing okay, but I've already removed it because it's not going to produce the pumpkins that I want, and it's pretty damaged with the mildew and being chewed on, so I've already taken that out of the garden. Now we're going to go ahead and harvest a lot of these jalapenos. You can see that these plants are pretty tall, and next year I think I'm going to go ahead and just top them so that they bush out, because as you guys know, once they start to overcrowd all the other plants like this, they start to get into that pest problem where we start to see more ants, aphids, and whiteflies, and that's something I want to avoid. So next year I'm going to top these to make sure that they bush out. That's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you leave a like and you check out one of the 2 videos that I have down below.